Welcome back, Dean Obeidallah Show. We're live here Thursday, March 20th. Joining us now, live from Florida, someone I've been talking about in the first hour a lot. He was on the show last month. Josh Weil. He's a Democratic nominee for Congress in Florida's 6th District. The election's April 1st. It's the open seat. But this is such a fundamentally important election. He's an educator and a dad of two. And we talked before you came on, Josh. It's great to have you back on, my friend. And congratulations on the campaign. Looking great, my friend, from what I've seen from the outside.
Thank you. Thank you. It's feeling great. We've been everywhere. We started today in, the district spreads over 6 counties. We started the day in Marion County. We had a huge event in the Villages in Lake County. Then we were up meeting with people around the Chamber of Commerce and the Putnam Fair in Palatka. Now we're at our office in Flagler, and we've got a big music fest I'm heading down to after this in Daytona, in Volusia County.
Wow.
Just every day is wild like this, but there's so much going on and the response is incredible.
That's excellent. And that's great to hear. Look, this election and Gay's race in District 1, these are winnable. The energy's on our side, and the energy of Republicans are actually angry against what Trump are doing. Here's the first chance they have to send a message. We don't like what you're doing to veterans. We don't like what you're doing to our fellow Americans. And one today is, and you're an education person, let's start with this. Trump signed his wish dream executive order to get rid of the Department of Education. And forget the legality part. They're going to strangle it.
Hard to forget the legality part.
Right. The legal part is going to take care of itself in the courts, right? That's going to go through, but they might have the support of Congress, but their goal is to end the Department of Education. So I'm saying put aside the legal part. What's the real world impact if he really achieves getting rid of the Department of Education?
All right. So getting rid of the Department of Education doesn't overturn federal law like ESSA, the Every Student Succeeds Act, or IDEA, Students with Disability in Education. But what it does is it removes the infrastructure, because federal supplemental funding goes directly to schools, doesn't go to the state, doesn't go to the district. Those schools get that money directly. So when you cut that out, what's left is that all of this money, their plan is that they're going to aggregate the money that's going to the states, to each school in the state, and give it to the state as a whole. So in New York, where you have a Democratic governor, that might not be that bad. We can trust that, she'll make sure. We'll probably still see some favorability and a little swerving of a little more money here, a little less there, but overall, it won't be detrimental. In Florida, we've got Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis has spent the last 6 years taking every dollar he could out of our public schools and diverting it to private and charters of his choosing, usually tied to backers of his political campaigns and agenda. When you remove that money, it's going to be devastating for schools across the state. It's going to result in massive school closures, school consolidations. We're going to see a huge increase in class sizes. It's on the budget we have now, because our state funding is so low, managing and maintaining the class size maximums is really near impossible in some elementary schools. People don't necessarily realize that, like, if it's 18 kids a class, right, and you're averaging like 19 or 20 in every grade, elementary school, 2 over in kindergarten, 2 over in first, 2 over in second, 2 over in third, right, and so on. You get 1 extra teacher. You get 1 extra teacher because the total sum adds up to 1 more class. What you need in order to maintain your class sizes is 6 extra teachers, because 1 teacher can't teach the overage on every area. And so it's already been incredibly difficult to manage and maintain class sizes. And when you take out all of the Title I funding, all of the funding for students with special needs, we're beyond impossible. We're not even close to
it. And what would the impact be on, you mentioned disabled students, the big part of the funding. What would be the impact on students who have disabilities?
So, our students with severe cognitive disabilities tend to get 4 to 5 times the base funding of a student based on the matrix for their IEP. So, you're talking about students that need a one-on-one para assistant. You're talking about money that comes in to hire an entirely additional person that is needed to provide care. And oftentimes districts here will hub these together for pooled resources and support. So instead of having, over say 6 middle schools, a couple students at each, they'll try to bust them all or magnet them to one school so we can have all the resources there. That way,
Right.
the people can, the support people can help each other and work together. But again, the majority of that money comes from the federal government. It is not in our state budget. So you're talking about all of the additional support staff that you have for students with special needs. They no longer fit in our budget.
So there's no doubt students are going to suffer from this. Some of the big donors in the Trump world or Republican governors will profit from it, from the voucher program or however else they do it with charter schools. And I imagine teachers are going to pay a price as well, or there might have less teachers. I mean, how do you think it impacts the teaching community?
Well, we've already seen a massive exodus from the teaching community. Last year, when we had our state of our school district in the county where I work, we were given a piece of data that I just couldn't believe. And, so this was in, 23-24 school year. And we were told that 70% of the teachers in our county were new to the profession post-COVID, 3 years or less experience. And what I found is that as I go county to county and talk to educators, talk to school board members, is that that's pretty consistent across the state now, which is wild, because when I started teaching 13 years ago, it was like a rule of thirds where you needed to balance your budget. You can't have all teachers with 30 years experience making max salary. It needs to average out. So about a third of your teachers would be in the top tier with lots of experience, 20 to 30 years. About a third of them would be in their first couple of years, new teachers working it out, and a third would be in the middle. And that's, how we learn and grow. Our teams and our department meetings, if you're new, everyone else has a wealth of experience. You're learning because you're the only new one. As an instructional coach working, leading teams in a school the last few years, I've had meetings where an entire team, an entire department is all in their first or second year. And if I leave the room, like, nobody knows. It's
Right.
really tough because we're trying to really train these teachers as we're going now, because so many of our experienced teachers have left, and it's so hard to get new ones when the pay is not great. And they're being called groomers or attacked on other things, and you can't, they're scared of what they can say or not say in classes. It's been so highly politicized and aggravated that, it's scared a lot of people out of the profession.
I can understand. I'm telling you, Josh Weil, Democratic candidate for Congress in Florida's 6th district. It's a special election, April 1st. Vitally important we win this election. So let's talk a little bit about, you're on the campaign trail. We talked a month ago. A lot has happened. There's been the massive layoffs, or at least the indicated layoffs. The economy has objectively slowed. That we've seen consumer confidence has dropped a lot. People's IRA and 401ks have really shrunk. You have a lot of veterans in Florida who are getting laid off. What can you share now? What are the top issues you're hearing from people?
We're seeing more and more veterans coming out to our events. We started talking to veterans and meeting with them by going to American Legions and VFWs. And within the first 48 hours of the initial round of cuts, when they laid off thousands of doctors and nurses from VA clinics, we had veterans immediately coming up to us telling us that their upcoming doctor's appointments, their scheduled operations or procedures were all pushed back 4 to 6 months. One man came up to me and said that he had just been referred for a new treatment, and his referral was under review. And when he logged on the day after the cuts and the firings, the expected time for review went from like 2 weeks to December of 2025. It's however the White House is trying to spin this, no one believes that firing thousands of doctors and nurses actually will give veterans, better health care and, quicker access. But the veterans themselves are feeling it immediately. There's an immediate impact that, you can't lie to them and tell them that it's not affecting them. And look, the PACT Act being passed last year was huge. It's insane that it took us that long It's insane that we have to argue over whether something should count or qualify to be covered for veterans health care, because there's everything should be covered for them. It shouldn't matter. You shouldn't have to prove decisively if it came during their time in service or not. And yet we did. It took so long to get there. And now the Republicans are talking about overturning it. And look, doesn't matter who they voted for last November. Like there is an incredible amount of feelings of betrayal among these people, these voters here. And, we're seeing more and more of them pop up at our town halls, looking for ways to support and make sure that, we can protect and the funding for the VA program, that we can ensure access to healthcare for them, with Medicaid, Medicare, and that we protect the PACT Act.
This is fundamentally important. And I'm glad that you shared what you're hearing firsthand. And this, for the people in these districts in Florida, are the first chance they have to send a message to Trump and to Elon Musk and to the GOP. This is not acceptable. And it's not about party. It's about, do you believe our veterans merit the care that they sacrifice for or not? Or do you turn, or the richest person in the world, because he wants a tax cut, will just throw them to the side because Elon Musk doesn't care about our fellow Americans. He cares about his profits and his business and tax cuts. And Donald Trump goes along with that. So what about how's the economy in your area? Your district is in the more of the northern part of Florida on the coast, going in a little bit. Daytona Beach is there. How is the economy?
So, and I believe Gabe mentioned this last night on your show, but housing and insurance are a huge crisis point in Florida. We've had,
Right.
Series of deregulations over the last 10 years that have made housing completely unaffordable across the state. Rent prices have skyrocketed. Insurance premiums for homeowners have quadrupled in a number of cases recently. People are still waiting to receive their claims from Hurricane Milton last year. The insurance companies just sit and hold it without any penalty. There's no teeth in any sort of the legislation here or effort to, hold them accountable. And they just hold on to that money to claim record profits. And it's the people who suffer and are impacted. A lot of people telling us, they voted for economic relief, and now they're getting the opposite. Now they're seeing tariffs. Now they're seeing, there's no change in any of the places they needed, but there's talk that their Social Security or disability benefits will be cut. There's talk of cuts to Medicaid and Medicare. The prescription drug caps and insulin caps have been cut. All of these things that are directly impacting them in the wallet, and they're feeling them right away.
Yeah, the Trump tax, which is what the tariff is of 25%, is the biggest tax increase in the history of America to do it across the board. It's not like one industry, it's across the board. And people are going to feel a great deal of pain. And I don't know if he's going to change his mind between now and early April. And some are in effect already, but some are rolling in the first week of April. We'll see. I wanted to touch on, chatting with Josh Weil, Democratic candidate for Congress in Florida's 6th District. Randy Fine, I touched on him earlier. He doesn't even live in your district. Donald Trump wants him to run. He's calling you a slur. I mentioned it earlier. He calls Josh Jihad Josh and says that you support terrorism, of course, because that's what scumbags like Randy Fine do. He's a bigot, anti-LGBT bigot, anti-Palestinian Christian bigot, anti-Muslim bigot overall.
Keep going. I'm not going to stop you.
Anything else you want to add? This guy is really bad. I mean, I'm not kidding. He is despicable. I'm not saying he's not run of the mill. He has threatened Congresswoman Tlaib and Omar, saying bombs away. I'm coming to Congress. He cheered when the American,
he doesn't want a
Turkish heritage
two-state solution. He doesn't want Palestinian relocation. He has publicly and explicitly called for the death of every man, woman, and child in Palestine. Hashtag bathe the streets in blood. He's a disgusting human being.
Yep. And just so people understand, again, he knows there are over 50,000 Palestinian Christians there in the Bethlehem area and other places. He is calling for the deaths of Christians and Muslims. He thinks he can get away with it because it's Muslims. This is the reality of what we're dealing with, how vile he is. So we got a few minutes left. I want to touch on, you're doing amazing with fundraising. I read small donations. I read about $10 million. What can you add about the support you're seeing and what it means to you?
So it's it's a sign of where we are across the country because these are coming in from all 50 states, not just donors. We have volunteers from all 50 states and Puerto Rico who done phone banking and postcarding for us. We have a couple hundred volunteers phone banking every day. They've made over 2 million calls at this point. This is a national response because everyone wants to have a say. Everyone wants to be able to impact the direction of Congress this year with where we're at right now. And,
Right.
only a few districts are going to get that opportunity. But down here in District 6, it's one of them. And so, they've done an amazing job helping us contact voters, get out the vote. And the response here is amazing. Our polling numbers are really good. We're in a comfortable lead right now. But
Wow.
we can't take our foot off the gas. We have a huge TV ad by running. We're all over TV. We're on radio, billboards, newspapers. I think I mentioned when we started, just everywhere, every day. The joke is we'll sleep in April. And
Right.
and we're getting it out. And there's still people on the outside who aren't here, who aren't on the ground, and they can't seem to wrap their brain that like that district, would vote, that those Republicans wouldn't just vote Republican. But like, are you watching TV? Like, did you see Hageman in Wyoming last night? Like,
Yes,
those
we played that
are
earlier. We played
there,
that very
there's
clip.
there's no Democrats in that crowd running her out. Like they're booing her off the stage, running her out of there. We're seeing it in Kansas and West Virginia. We're seeing it all over the country, this response. And so, those are to people that they elected. Those are to people that, they have voted for and feel ownership to, that they put into office. This guy they've never met before. This guy's coming in from nowhere, arrogant as all get out. And it's been great. He spent the first 2 months saying that, going on record, he doesn't have to build a campaign, doesn't have to reach out to voters, doesn't need a team, doesn't care. He's on record, doesn't care what issues are important to voters because a Republican can't lose here. And then, about 2 weeks ago, he must have done some polling and his data had to have looked similar to ours because he has just been losing his mind. Just a sad little man, desperate, scared, and calling me every name he can think of.
Yep.
But
Well,
it's
we're
great.
wishing you. We before I wrap up here, we have 1 minute left. If people want to volunteer or donate their time, money, whatever, where do they go?
Yeah, please, please, please go to joshweil.us, joshweil.us. There are links there to volunteer, to get involved with our phone banking. If you're in the area or you can make it down, there's links to sign up for canvassing, and you can still contribute. We need to continue to be able to keep this pace up, knocking on 25,000 doors a day. The TV ads are
Wow.
just covering the market to make sure that we need to keep this up through election day. We've got 12 days to go, and we can't take our foot off the gas for a second.
Well, Josh, I wish you well. Inshallah, you will win this thing, and then you can come back
Inshallah.
on, brother. We can talk on the other side as you're a member of Congress. Be very excited. Again, Josh Weil, one of the two candidates. We had Gabe Alamont on last night in District 1, District 6. You want to make a difference now? You don't have to wait till November. You don't have to wait till 2026. Here's how you do it right now. Volunteer for Josh. Make a donation. Best of luck, brother. I'll talk to you on the other side.
Thank you, brother. Take care.